Here is the translation in English, keeping the dramatic tone. The heart stopped. The senator is on the verge of death. And the arrogant doctor is holding the wrong medicine. The heart monitor screamed. It was a chaotic, high-pitched wail that sliced through the sterile air of Trauma Bay 1. Senator Marcus Thorne, the VIP patient who had been admitted for minor chest pains, was suddenly seizing violently against the restraints. His face was turning a terrifying shade of violet, veins bulging against his neck like thick blue cords. "He's crashing. Get the epinephrine," yelled Dr. Sterling. Sterling was the hospital's golden boy. Perfect hair, expensive watch, and an ego that took up more space than the crash cart. He held his hand out, snapping his fingers impatiently. The young resident, shaking with nerves, handed him a preloaded syringe. "Administering 1 milligram AP, push now," Sterling announced for the room's voice recorder, playing the hero. Time seemed to warp. To everyone else in the room, it was just a standard code. But to Serena Blake, the quiet night nurse standing by the suction machine, the world slowed down to a frame-by-frame disaster. Her eyes, usually dull and lowered, sharpened instantly. She saw the label on the syringe barrel as it passed under the harsh overhead lights. The color band wasn't the standard brown for epinephrine. It was a distinct, warning red. Succinylcholine. A paralytic. If Sterling pushed that into a man whose heart was already stopping, Thorne wouldn't just crash. He would suffocate while fully conscious, his diaphragm paralyzed instantly. It wasn't medicine. It was an execution. "Stop!" Serena didn't shout, she commanded. The voice didn't belong to a nurse. It belonged to a soldier. Sterling ignored her, the needle inching toward the fore-port. "Quiet, nurse. I'm saving him." Serena didn't argue. She moved. In one fluid motion, she abandoned her station. She cleared the 3 feet between them faster than the residents could blink. Her hand, calloused and strong, chopped down on Sterling's wrist. The impact was precise, hitting the radial nerve. Sterling yelped, his fingers losing all sensation. The syringe flew from his grip, spinning through the air before shattering against the tiled floor. Clear liquid splattered across the expensive leather loafers of the chief of medicine, who had just walked in. "You crazy bitch!" Sterling screamed, clutching his wrist. "You just killed a United States senator." The room went dead silent. The monitor was still flatlining. Serena didn't look at the doctor. She grabbed the correct vial from the crash cart, drew it up with trembling speed, and slammed it into the fore. "Pulse returning," the tech called out, breathless. "Sinus rhythm. He's back." Serena stepped back, fading into the shadows. But the look Sterling gave her wasn't relief. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. The adrenaline in the trauma bay dissipated, replaced immediately by the heavy, suffocating weight of hospital hierarchy. Senator Thorne was stable, breathing rhythmically, completely unaware that he had been 1 second away from a chemical assassination. Dr. Sterling, however, was not stable. His face was a mask of red fury. He cornered Serena in the hallway, right in front of the bustling nurses' station. He wanted an audience. He needed to re-establish the food chain. "Who do you think you are?" Sterling hissed, invading her personal space. "You physically assaulted an attending physician. I could have your license stripped before the sun comes up." Serena looked at the floor. It was part of the act. The gray scrubs she wore were 2 sizes too big, hiding the lean, scarred muscle underneath. Her hair was pulled back in a messy, unassuming bun. To them, she was nobody. Just labor. "The medication was wrong, doctor," she said softly. Her voice was back to being the quiet nurse whisper. "It was a paralytic. It was a mistake. A stocking error." Sterling shouted, slamming his hand against the wall. "But you don't make the calls." "I do. You are a glorified wiper of bottoms, Serena. You are a janitor with a nursing degree. Do not ever touch me or my patients again." Head nurse Ratched, a woman who valued protocol over patient lives, marched over, clipboard in hand. She didn't ask what happened. She just saw the star surgeon upset. "Blake, write yourself up for insubordination," Ratchet snapped. "And you're off the VIP detail. Go inventory the supply closet in the basement. Get out of my sight." Serena nodded, accepting the humiliation. It was safer this way. If she fought back, they would look at her file. If they looked at her file, they would see the redacted years. The gaps where Serena Blake didn't exist, but Agent Wraith did. She turned and walked toward the service elevators. As the doors closed, shutting out the mocking laughter of the residents, Serena's posture changed. The slump vanished. She rolled her neck, cracking the tension. She pulled a crushed vial cap from her pocket, the one from the syringe Sterling had tried to use. She examined it under the elevator light. There was a tiny laser-etched symbol on the plastic. A black scorpion. This wasn't a stocking error. Someone had planted that vial. And they were still in the building. The elevator lurched. The lights flickered, then died completely. The emergency red mood lighting bathed the small metal box in blood-colored hues. The elevator hung suspended in the shaft, the silence ringing in Serena's ears. It wasn't a mechanical failure. She knew the difference between a fuse blowing and a hard system cut. The hum of the ventilation had stopped. The ambient vibration of the building was gone. This was a hard line cut. Someone had just severed Mercy General's connection to the outside world. Serena didn't panic. She reached up, popped the emergency hatch in the ceiling of the elevator, and pulled herself up with effortless strength. She climbed the greasy cables, moving like a spider in the darkness, until she reached the third-floor doors. She forced them open and slipped into the hallway. The hospital was in chaos. The backup generators hadn't kicked in yet. Emergency lights cast long, eerie shadows down the corridors. Nurses were using cell phone flashlights to check charts. "Phones are down," a clerk yelled from the intake desk. "Cell service too. Is it a jammer?" Serena pressed her back against the wall, scanning the environment. A jammer. That confirmed it. This was a hit. The failed injection was Plan A, quiet and deniable. Now they were moving to Plan B, loud and messy. She moved toward the ICU, sticking to the shadows. As she passed the main lobby balcony, she looked down. The glass doors of the main entrance were shattered. 4 men stood in the lobby. They weren't police. They weren't confused family members. They wore black tactical gear, unmarked, with gas masks obscuring their faces. They held suppressed carbines at the low-ready position. They moved with a terrifying synchronization, checking corners, covering vectors. Dr. Sterling was down there, shouting at them, trying to assert his authority. "I am the chief surgeon. You can't just..." One of the men simply backhanded Sterling with the butt of his rifle. The surgeon crumbled to the floor, unconscious. The men stepped over him like he was trash. Serena's heart rate dropped. This was her world now. These men were cleaners, mercenaries hired to scrub a target. They were heading for the elevators. They were going to the ICU to finish Senator Thorne. She touched the scar behind her ear. She had no weapon, no radio, no backup. Just a hospital full of panicked civilians and a toolkit of medical supplies. She broke into a run, her soft-soled shoes making zero noise. She had to beat them to the 3rd floor. She had to secure the VIP. The ICU was a portrait of hysteria. Without the main power, the ventilators were running on internal batteries, beeping their low-power warnings. Nurses were manually bagging patients. The residents were frozen, staring at the darkened hallway. Serena burst through the double doors. She didn't look like the janitor nurse anymore. Her eyes were burning with intensity. "Lock the doors," she ordered. The authority in her voice cracked like a whip. "We can't lock fire doors, Serena. It's against code." A young nurse stammered. "Do it now." Serena shoved a heavy crash cart in front of the double doors. She grabbed a pair of trauma shears from a counter and jammed them through the door handles, creating a makeshift deadbolt. "Listen to me. There are armed men in the building. They are coming for the senator. If they get in here, they will kill anyone who sees their faces. Do you understand?" The staff stared at her. The mouse had turned into a lion. "Dr. Evans." Serena pointed at a stunned resident. Take the senator off the main monitor. The light makes him a target. Bag him manually. Move his bed into the supply alcove. Now. But Dr. Sterling said. Sterling is unconscious in the lobby, Serena lied, or predicted. I am in command. Move. She began stripping the room. She grabbed 4 poles, oxygen tanks, and cords. She wasn't setting up a triage. She was building a kill zone. She took a bottle of isopropyl alcohol and poured it across the floor in front of the entrance. What are you doing? Nurse Ratched appeared, her flashlight shaking. You are destroying hospital property. Security is on the way. Security is dead, Serena said coldly. She didn't know for sure, but against that team downstairs, the mall cops didn't stand a chance. Boom. A heavy thud shook the double doors. The crash cart rattled. Open up. A distorted voice came through the crack. Federal agents. We're here to secure the senator. The staff looked relieved. Nurse Ratched stepped forward. Oh, thank God. It's the police. She reached for the shears, jamming the handles. Don't. Serena lunged, grabbing Ratched's arm. Look at their boots. Ratched looked through the small glass window. The men outside weren't wearing standard-issue police boots. They were wearing silent, traction-grip tactical footwear used for wet work. And there was no police chatter on radios. Just silence. Police announced themselves 3 times, Serena whispered. These men only knocked once. The handle turned violently. Metal screeched against metal. The shears were bending. The metal shears groaned under the pressure. The cleaners outside were done being polite. A rhythmic thumping began. They were using a battering ram. Serena pulled Ratched back. Get everyone behind the nurse's station. Stay low. Do not pop your head up. She needed a weapon. She scanned the room. The defibrillator. Serena grabbed the paddles. She didn't charge them yet. The high-pitched whine would give her away. She crouched behind the crash cart she had jammed against the door. Through the reinforced glass, she saw the leader of the tactical team signal his men. It wasn't a standard SWAT hand signal. He tapped his helmet twice, then sliced his hand across his throat. Sector clear / terminate all. Serena froze. She knew that signal. That was a specific code used by the 404th Battalion, a Black Ops ghost unit she had trained with a decade ago. These weren't just mercenaries. They were her old brothers in arms. Or at least, men trained by the same shadow government that made her. The door flew open. The crash cart slid back, but the alcohol-slick Serena had poured did its job. The first man rushed in. His boot hit the wet tile and he slipped. He went down hard, his rifle clattering away. Serena didn't hesitate. She surged forward. She didn't strike him. She moved with a terrifying grace, stepping on his rifle to pin it. She grabbed his wrist. Checking for a pulse? No. Checking for the tattoo. There it was. On the inside of his wrist, exposed by the gap in his glove. The same black scorpion she had seen on the vial cap. The man looked up, his gas mask lenses reflecting the emergency lights. He saw Serena. He saw the way she stood. He saw the scar running down her neck. Wraith, he grunted, his voice thick with shock. Serena kicked him in the helmet, knocking him cold before he could yell to his team. She grabbed his radio. Who is inside? The voice in the earpiece crackled. It was the team leader. Serena keyed the mic, pressing it to her throat to distort her voice further. Room clear. Just civilians. She had bought them 30 seconds. Maybe less. She looked up. The young resident, Dr. Evans, was staring at her. During the scuffle, Serena's scrub top had ripped at the shoulder. Exposed on her deltoid was a mass of scar tissue, bullet wounds, burn marks, and a faded military barcode. Serena. Evans whispered, his eyes wide. What are you? Not a nurse, she replied, picking up the mercenary's flashbang grenade. Get the patient moving. We're leaving. Now. The ICU was no longer safe. Serena led the small group of staff and the gurney-bound senator toward the rear exit, the service corridor that led to the morgue elevators. It was the only route the tactical team wouldn't secure immediately. Nobody expects the target to go down toward the dead. They reached the service doors, but the keypad was dead. Serena knelt, pulling a wire from her pocket to jump the mechanism. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on. The main power grid had been restored. Thank God! Nurse Ratched cried out. Before Serena could stop her, Ratched grabbed the wall phone. Security! This is ICU. We are being held hostage by a nurse. She's armed. Serena spun around. Put the phone down. But it was too late. The elevators at the end of the hall chimed. The doors slid open. Dr. Sterling stepped out, flanked by 2 hospital security guards and the tactical team leader, who had removed his mask to look like a federal agent. There she is! Sterling shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Serena. That's the woman. She tried to inject the senator with poison earlier. I stopped her, and now she's trying to kidnap him. It was the perfect frame job. Sterling needed a scapegoat for the near-fatal error, and the hit squad needed a patsy to blame for the senator's death. Step away from the patient. The team leader barked, raising his weapon. He winked at Sterling. They were in on it together. Serena held up her hands. She looked at the young resident, Evans. Check the vial in my pocket, she whispered. Don't let them destroy it. Get on your knees. The guard shouted. Serena slowly knelt. The guards rushed her, roughly cuffing her hands behind her back. They shoved her face into the linoleum. Take her to the holding room in the basement, Sterling sneered, adjusting his tie. I'll take over the senator's care from here. The team leader nodded to his men. Secure the senator. No witnesses. As they dragged Serena away, she made eye contact with the team leader. He smiled, a cold, predatory grin. He thought he had won. He didn't realize that by sending her to the basement, he was sending her to her armory. The elevator doors closed, separating Serena from the innocent staff who were about to be silenced. The basement holding room was essentially a reinforced closet used for psychiatric outbursts. The 2 security guards threw Serena onto the single metal chair. They didn't know they were locking themselves in with a tiger. Stay here till the cops come, one guard grunted. The cops aren't coming, Serena said, her voice eerily calm. Those men upstairs are going to kill everyone in the ICU to cover their tracks. Then they're coming for you. Shut up, crazy lady, the guard laughed. Serena closed her eyes. She visualized her cuffs. Standard Smith & Wesson police issue. Single lock mechanism. She reached into the back waistband of her scrub pants. She had hidden a paperclip there 3 hours ago, just out of habit. She manipulated the wire with her fingers. Click. The ratchet released. Hey, what are you doing? The guard turned. Serena was already moving. She didn't hit them. She flowed around them. She swept the first guard's legs, sending him crashing into the second. Before they could scramble up, she was out the door and locking it from the outside. Sorry, boys, she whispered. Safest place for you. She ran down the hall to the maintenance room. She didn't need a gun. This was her hospital. Every room was a weapon if you knew how to use it. She grabbed a pressurized tank of nitrous oxide. She grabbed a roll of duct tape and a box of flares from the emergency kit. She accessed the building's PA system via the maintenance panel. She couldn't call out, but she could broadcast internally. She leaned into the mic. Her voice echoed through every speaker in the building, cold and distorted. To the men on the 3rd floor. You made a mistake. You didn't check the roster. You think you're hunting a nurse. But you're trapped in here with Agent Wraith. Up in the ICU, the team leader froze. His face went pale. He knew that name. Every mercenary knew that name. It was the call sign of the government's most lethal asset, presumed dead 5 years ago. Cut the power. The leader screamed to his men. Serena smiled as she watched the monitors. Too late, she whispered. She pulled the fire alarm. The sprinklers exploded overhead, filling the hallways with mist. Visibility 0. Now the hunt was on. The hospital was a dripping, flashing nightmare. The fire alarm blared, and the sprinklers hissed, turning the hallways into a slick, foggy maze. The tactical team was disoriented. Their night vision goggles were useless in the reflective mist. Serena moved through the ceiling vents, dropping down into the operating room adjacent to where they were holding the senator. She saw 2 mercenaries guarding the door. They were nervous, sweeping their lasers frantically through the fog. Serena didn't charge. She opened the valve on the nitrous oxide tank she had dragged with her. She rolled it silently across the floor toward them. The heavy gas hissed out, invisible in the mist. The men started to feel it. Dizziness, slowed reaction times. They stumbled. Serena dropped from the ceiling tiles like a phantom. She held a defibrillator paddle in each hand. "Wine. Clear," she whispered. She slammed the paddles onto the wet back of the first mercenary. The electric shock, conducted by the water-soaked gear, convulsed him instantly. He dropped like a stone. The second man spun around, firing blindly. Bullets sparked against the sterilizing machines. Serena slid under a gurney, grabbing a scalpel from a tray. She popped up behind him, slicing the strap of his rifle, then jamming the scalpel into the pressure point of his shoulder. He screamed and dropped the gun. She kicked him into the wall, grabbing a canister of ether and smashing it over his mask filters. He gasped, inhaling the concentrated fumes, and slumped to the floor. Serena stood up, panting. She was bleeding from a graze on her arm. She picked up the fallen rifle. She hated guns, clumsy tools, but she needed leverage. She kicked open the doors to the main suite. Dr. Sterling was there, holding a syringe over the senator's neck. The team leader had his gun trained on the door. "Don't come closer," Sterling shrieked. "I'll kill him. I swear." "You were going to kill him anyway, Doctor," Serena said, leveling the rifle. Her aim was rock steady. "That's the difference between us. You kill for money. I kill to save lives." The team leader laughed. "You're one woman, Wraith. I have 6 more men coming up the stairs." "No," Serena said. "You don't." She gestured to the window. Outside, blue and red lights were finally flashing. But not just police. Black SUVs. "I didn't just trigger the fire alarm," Serena said. "I triggered the silent code. The one that alerts the Department of Defense that a high-value asset has been compromised. They aren't here for the senator. They're here for me." The sound of shattering glass filled the room as repelling lines smashed through the exterior windows. Soldiers with FBI HRT and military police patches swung into the room. "Drop the weapons. Get on the ground." The team leader hesitated, looking at Serena. He knew it was over. He dropped his gun. Sterling, however, panicked. "She's the terrorist. She has a gun. Shoot her." He lunged toward the senator with the needle. Bang. Serena didn't shoot Sterling. She shot the syringe out of his hand. The plastic exploded, shards flying. Sterling collapsed, sobbing in terror. The soldiers swarmed the room. Handcuffs clicked. The senator was secured. A tall man in a general's uniform walked in through the shattered window, stepping over the glass. He looked at the chaos, the unconscious mercenaries, the sobbing doctor, the terrified staff. Then he looked at Serena. She was leaning against the wall, tired, the rifle resting on the floor. She looked like a mess, wet hair, torn scrubs, blood. The general walked straight past Sterling, who was shouting, "I demand a lawyer. That woman is crazy." The general stopped in front of Serena. The room went quiet. The young resident, Evans, watched in awe. "Agent Blake," the general said, his voice respectful. "It's been a long time." "I'm just a nurse general," Serena said, her voice hoarse. "Not tonight you weren't," he replied. He motioned to his men. "Secure the perimeter. Get the footage from the security cameras before it's erased. We have everything we need to put Dr. Sterling and this hit squad away for life." Dr. Evans stepped forward, holding the vial Serena had given him earlier. "She saved him," Evans said, his voice shaking. "Dr. Sterling tried to use a paralytic. Serena swapped it. She saved us all." The general nodded. "I know." He turned back to Serena. We need you back, Serena. The program. We're blind without you. Serena looked at the senator, who was waking up. She looked at the nurses who were staring at her with a mix of fear and hero worship. My shift isn't over, General, she said, pushing off the wall. I have patients to check. The sun was rising over Mercy General. The scene outside was a circus of news vans and police cars. The headline was already breaking. Assassination foiled, rogue surgeon and mercenaries arrested. Dr. Sterling was being shoved into the back of a federal van, his face hidden by a jacket. The senator was being transferred to a military hospital, alive and stable. Inside the locker room, Serena Blake stripped off her ruined scrubs. She washed the blood from her arms. The adrenaline was fading, leaving the old aches in her joints. She put on her civilian clothes, a simple hoodie and jeans. She opened her locker. Inside was a small medal, hidden in the back, and a picture of a unit that no longer existed. Dr. Evans knocked on the open door. He held a clipboard. Serena. Yeah, Evans. The board. They want to give you a commendation. The mayor is on the phone. They're calling you a hero. They want to promote you to head of nursing. Serena slammed her locker shut. She picked up her bag. Tell them I quit. Evans blinked. What? Why? You won. You run this place now. Serena turned to him. I can't stay, Evans. People know who I am now. That makes the patients unsafe. As long as I'm a ghost, I can protect people. The moment I'm a celebrity, I'm a target. She walked past him, patting him on the shoulder. You're a good doctor, Evans. Don't let the ego get you. Where will you go? He asked. Serena paused at the doorway. The morning light hit her silhouette. She looked back, and for the first time she smiled, a real, dangerous smile. There's a clinic in Chicago having trouble with a local gang, she said. I hear they need a night nurse. She walked out into the busy corridor, blending instantly into the crowd. Within seconds, she was gone. Just another face in the hallway. Evans looked down at the clipboard. On the sign-out sheet, under reason for leaving, Serena had written 3 words. Duty of care.